Hachiman is a pathetic loser wishing he could opt out of life. That changes when his homeroom teacher forces him into a club, where he encounters a frigid beauty who turns him into the school's scapegoat. It all kicks off in the staff room as Ms. Shizuka confronts Hachiman, questioning why his essay reads like it was penned by the Fallout Boys, feeling insulted by the emo label. Hachiman retorts that every teenager dreams of escaping life, so this isn't unusual. Shizuka quickly loses patience with this irritating brat and considers punching him, but ultimately holds back. Before Hachiman can threaten legal action, Shizuka commands him to follow her. They arrive at a classroom where Yukino is engrossed in a book. Seeing her, Hachiman realizes he prefers intelligent women, but his expression sours as he remembers who Yukino is. Yukino is part of the prestigious international education class, notorious for its 90% female population, all of whom are total stunners, with Yukino reigning at the top. Hachiman snaps out of his daze as Shizuka introduces him to Yukino. Taken aback, Hachiman questions Shizuka's motives for sabotaging his reputation, but she stands firm, declaring this is his consequence for the terrible essay. While Hachiman sulks, Shizuka asks Yukino to help transform his spirit, but Yukino flatly refuses, saying he looks like he's about to become an emo Redditor. Hachiman glares at Yukino, but Shizuka backs him up, assuring Yukino that he won't do anything illegal. Feeling more at ease, Yukino agrees to Shizuka's request and lets Hachiman join her club. Once Shizuka leaves, Yukino resumes her reading while Hachiman reflects on a time he proposed to a girl who rejected him, saying he was so ugly that he'd never get attacked in jail. That rejection shattered his heart, leading Hachiman to swear off love, convinced girls only go for guys who look like handsome Squidward. Turning to Yukino, Hachiman stares at her, determined to make her despise him. With that in mind, Hachiman attempts to growl like an alpha wolf, only to be schooled by Yukino. Once he calms down, Yukino asks if he's ever touched anyone other than his mother. This triggers Hachiman to remember his failed attempts to flirt with classmates, only to be met with cold indifference. When Hachiman stays silent, Yukino explains that her club is for those who might become basement dwellers. With that, she welcomes him to the Volunteers Club. From outside the door, Shizuka overhears their heated exchange and decides to step in. Hachiman tells Yukino he doesn't need to change to fit into society, but she insists this isn't America where he can find someone who matches his weirdness. Sighing, Shizuka tells them that since they can't agree, they'll have to compete to see who can use the club to help others. The next day, Hachiman returns to the club, calling Yukino a big fat loner as well. Yukino reluctantly accepts Hachiman's jab, but clarifies that she has no friends because all the boys want her and all the girls despise her. In a similar vein, Yukino tells Hachiman she loathes how the world is filled with jealous, flawed people like him, which is why she wants to change it. Noticing Yukino's honesty, Hachiman starts to see some similarities between them. This leads him to ask Yukino if she'd like to be friends, but she bluntly replies that she doesn't befriend someone with tuna breath. Hachiman is on the verge of losing it when a girl walks into the room. Spotting Hachiman, Yui loudly asks Yukino what he's doing there. As Hachiman hears Yui use his nickname, he wonders where this unattractive stranger gets the nerve. Yui turns out to be a classmate of Hachiman, fully aware of his loner status. A few days later, the trio gathers in the kitchen. Yukino tells Hachiman she's assisting Yui in making cookies, and all he needs to do is share his thoughts. After their first failed attempt, Yui feels defeated, lamenting that if the way to a man's heart is through his stomach, she's destined to die a virgin. Additionally, she expresses her belief that she'll never be as talented as those around her. Hearing this, Yukino urges Yui to change her loser mindset, inspiring her to improve. However, when Yui fails again, Hachiman steps in, telling her she doesn't need to overexert herself since any man would melt at the sight of a living woman. Days later, Yui enters the clubroom, presenting Yukino and Hachiman with homemade cookies. Despite finding the cookies revolting, Hachiman eats one when he thinks no one is watching. After returning to his seat, Hachiman observes his classmates, noting how those with striking looks and charisma sit at the top while the rest swarm around him like flies. Looking down on this hierarchy, Hachiman muses that he's an apex predator who doesn't need anyone to find happiness. Forgetting one crucial detail, nobody needs him either. A few minutes later, Shizuka calls Hachiman to her office, questioning him again about his twisted perspective. Irritated, Hachiman asks Shizuka why she keeps pestering him, to which she explains that as the student counselor, it's her job to provide guidance. Shizuka then asks Hachiman why he opposes groups and attractive people, but he counters that she should understand his feelings since she's an old hag with only her pets and personal devices for company. After landing a punch on Hachiman, Shizuka inquires about his client, referring to Yu Yi. Instead of responding, Hachiman asks the counselor about the competition she mentioned a few days prior. Recalling the competition, Shizuka declares that her choice for the winner will be based on her personal biases. Feeling uneasy, Hachiman chooses silence until Shizuka inquires about his feelings when he finds her annoying. Shizuka explains to Hachiman that even the seemingly flawless Yukino faces her own challenges. As Shizuka suggests sending him and Yukino to a safe place, Hachiman wonders if she means a mental health facility. Back in class, Hachiman sighs, disappointed to be stuck eating with the background characters. His gaze shifts to the Queen Bee and the Chad King, Yumiko and Hayato, bickering about an ice cream shop. Yumiko insists on trying new flavors, but Hayato retorts that she's starting to resemble a land whale. During their exchange, Yukino attempts to win over Yumiko, who simply ignores her. That is, until Yukino mentions she has somewhere to be. In response, the Queen Bee tells her to grab a lemon soda, but when Yukino says she'll be late, Yumiko gets furious, calling her a disobedient servant. Watching from a distance, Hachiman feels uneasy for Yukino and considers defending her. However, when Yumiko shouts at Yukino, he retracts and decides to keep to himself. Out of nowhere, Yukino shows up, rescuing Yukino from the awkward situation. Upon her arrival, Yukino finds the courage she desperately needed. Once the classroom empties, Yukino expresses her gratitude to Hachiman for defending her. After everyone leaves, Yukino tells Yukino she's done being her personal doormat and prefers Hachiman's company. After saying this, Yukino steps outside to find Hachiman waiting. Instead of thanking him, Yukino calls Hachiman a broken radiator and rushes to catch up with Yukino. The trio enters the clubroom, greeted by a peculiar old man who seems to know Hachiman. When the girls question why he knows someone who looks like they escaped from a mental ward, Hachiman quickly denies any connection. As the old man, Yoshiteru, rambles on, Hachiman finally admits he used to be his gym partner. Yoshiteru then boasts about being a swordsman. The girls urge Hachiman to drop his pants and show his sword to see who fights better. Ignoring Yukino and Yukino, Hachiman asks Yoshiteru what he's doing there, but the old man keeps rambling about needing the Volunteers Club to grant wishes. This prompts Yukino to explain that the Volunteers Club helps guide people in a better direction, as they aren't magical beings. Yoshiteru, disappointed, thought the Volunteers Club would offer him some soul-snatching service. Seeing Yoshiteru lose his composure, Yukino grows worried and asks Hachiman what's really happening. Finally, Hachiman reveals that Yoshiteru suffers from 8th grade syndrome, mimicking a historical character and living in a fantasy. When he tells Yukino that the syndrome can be severe, she asks for an example of just how bad it can get. Hachiman confesses he once lived in his own delusions, but he faced reality and became more than just a poster child for lobotomy. Meanwhile, Yukino asks Yoshiteru if he wants them to help cure his mental issues, while Hachiman spots a paper on the floor. After reading it, he finally understands the situation and asks Yoshiteru if he's writing a novel. The old man admits he's writing a light novel and has entered a contest for new writers. With that, Yoshiteru expresses his desire for them to read his manuscript so he can submit it confidently. Understanding his plea, Hachiman suggests that nowadays people online rate PPs, so he could just ask them to evaluate his book. However, Yoshiteru insists they provide feedback since he can't handle harsh criticism just yet. At that moment, Hachiman warns Yoshiteru that Yukino is far more ruthless than any average editor. That night, Hachiman spends hours reading the manuscript, utterly exhausted. The next day at school, he finds Yukino napping in the clubroom. Noticing her peaceful slumber, Hachiman gently praises her work, waking her up. Upon seeing Hachiman, Yukino remarks that his ugliness startled her. Hachiman curses himself and apologizes to Daddy Tate for having feelings for Yukino. Later, Yoshiteru arrives, demanding an honest critique. Yukino tells him to ask, and he shall receive. With that, she declares his book was so dull that she didn't need sleeping pills. Yoshiteru, hearing this, becomes despondent, but expects Hachiman to unleash his creative insights. To his dismay, Hachiman joins Yukino in mocking his book. Now, unable to handle it, Yoshiteru ends up in tears from the insults. Later on, Yoshiteru asks the group if they would be willing to provide constructive criticism when he rewrites his book. Surprised, the crew questions whether he has a humiliation kink. Yoshiteru simply enjoys hearing others' opinions about his creations. With that, the old Gozo departs to confront his imaginary foes. In gym class, Hachiman's group is paired up for a game of badminton. Forever alone, Hachiman knows just what to say to the teacher to escape. He tells the teacher he can play solo, but then a ball smacks his head. A few brain cells lost, Hachiman returns the ball as his classmates mumble a half-hearted apology. But when they misname him, Hachiman's temper flares and he hurls the ball at the wall only to get hit again. Later, Hachiman enjoys his lunch alone until Yu shows up. Hachiman, annoyed by her presence, questions why Yu isn't in the kitchen. Yu explains she's being punished by Yukino, making Hachiman wonder if this is her punishment. Yu quickly clarifies that her punishment was to fetch drinks, and she just happened to find him. Relieved, Hachiman relaxes. He would have lost it if Yukino had used him as a punishment. Yu, a product of neglect, sits next to Hachiman and starts chatting about how much she enjoys her time now thanks to Yukino. Irritated, Hachiman suggests Yu could use her mouth for something better, like getting him a drink. But she declines, not wanting to star in a show that requires incognito mode. After hitting Hachiman, Yu asks if he remembers the entrance ceremony day. Hachiman claims he doesn't recall anything, revealing he had an accident that day. Before they can continue, a trap named Saw-Yu interrupts, asking what they're doing in the bushes. Yu nervously laughs and tells Saw-Yu she was just giving Hachiman some attention to prevent him from venting on Facebook. Saw-Yu then turns to Hachiman, complimenting his tennis skills. Being from the tennis club, Saw-Yu knows what he's talking about. Unfamiliar with Saw-Yu, Hachiman sheepishly laughs at the unexpected praise and asks Yu who this stranger is. Yu reveals that Saw-Yu is in their class, surprising Hachiman, who admits he doesn't interact much with girls. In response, Saw-Yu shyly states he's a guy, clearly confused. Hachiman thinks Yu has more testosterone than this guy. Once the break ends, Saw-Yu invites him to play tennis. During the match, Saw-Yu acts cute with Hachiman, causing him to see him differently. Afterward, Hachiman sits on the bench to calm his bewildered junior, who sits close beside him. Nervous, Hachiman fights the urge to prove why men should choose bears too. Suddenly, Saw-Yu mentions that the tennis club is weak and will only get worse when the seniors graduate. With that, the girl with the joystick asks Hachiman to join the tennis club since he's quite skilled. A few minutes later, Hachiman seeks Yukino's approval to leave the volunteers club for the tennis club. Of course, it's not out of kindness. He plans to quit the volunteers club under the guise of joining tennis, then slip away. However, Yukino, being sharp, asks if he genuinely wants to join the tennis club, believing full is a whole, whether it's a girl or a cute twink. Impressed, Hachiman asks Yukino how she knows so much. The girl reveals that's how the Greeks did it. Changing the topic, Hachiman pleads with Yukino to let him join the tennis club. Surprised, Yukino asks why he cares so much, prompting Hachiman to say it's the first time someone has approached him for help. Yukino admits that if someone like him came to her, he must have been really desperate. When asked what she would have done, Yukino says she would have made the tennis club members run laps until they reincarnated as vending machines. After all, modern issues require modern solutions. Suddenly the door swings open and in walks Yukino. She confidently declares that as a club member, she has brought them a client. He walks in, shocked to see Hachiman there. As Yukino rambles about wanting to do something nice for her club, she reminds her of a crucial detail she forgot. She was never a member of the Volunteers Club since she never submitted her application. After a dramatic scream, the group focuses on solving Sully's issue, who just wants to help the tennis club improve. When Hachiman asks Yukino what her plan is, she states she's 100% serious about starting a strict training regimen, so the next few days are spent with the Volunteers Club helping Sully level up. After several days of training, Yukino abruptly leaves the tennis court, causing Sully to worry. He asks Yui and Hachiman if his incompetence scared Yukino away, but they reassure him otherwise. Suddenly, Yumiko, Hayato, and NPCs arrive, eager to join whatever Hachiman is up to. When Hachiman tells them to scram, Hayato attempts to mediate, but Hachiman isn't interested. He retorts, complimenting Hayato's looks and mentioning he's the soccer team's quarterback. Now he's eyeing the tennis club too, fed up with all the drama. Yumiko pesters Hayato, insisting she just wants to play tennis already. This leads Hayato to suggest a match against Hachiman, with the winner getting to play during break. And naturally, if Hayato wins, he'll help Sully out too. Yumiko jumps in, eager to play, prompting Yui to reluctantly step up against her former friend. During the match, Yumiko shows everyone she's more than just a mean girl. She can actually play tennis. Sadly, Yui injures her foot, forcing her to leave the court. With everything on the line, Hachiman is about to plead for Hayato's forgiveness when Yui arrives with Yukino, asking her to take her place. Yukino, puzzled, questions why Yui needs to step in for her. Yui, smiling with determination, explains that as friends, she can only count on Yukino. This ignites a spark in Yukino, who confidently prepares to face Yumiko. The match is fierce, with both sides giving it their all. Ultimately, it falls to Hachiman to clinch victory for the volunteer club. Years of solitary practice finally pay off as he secures the win. Yet no one cheers for him. Hayato and Yumiko, after their loss, dramatically elope, leaving the NPC with quite the show. Later, the plot god rewards Hachiman's efforts with a glimpse of Yui and Yukino's thighs. Before heading to school, Hachiman encounters a brain-dead creature at home, his little sister Komachi, engrossed in gossip. Noticing her sprawled out, Hachiman reminds her it's time to focus on her studies. This doesn't bode well for Hachiman as Komachi starts shedding her clothes, tossing them at him like he's a chair. Once she heads off to bathe, Hachiman reflects on how strange it is to have sisters. No matter how cute, there's no attraction. He even admits that when he sees Komachi in her underwear, he just wonders about the fabric. Stepping outside, Hachiman finds Komachi waiting for him to drive her to school. With a sigh, Hachiman hops on his bike as Komachi warns him to avoid traffic accidents. This triggers a memory of his first accident. At the school year's start, he was eager for a fresh start, leaving home early. However, on his way, a dog was about to get its shot at reincarnation, but Hachiman chose to save it. Consequently, he ended up in the hospital with a fractured foot. When he arrived at school, Komachi informed him that the dog's owner visited him in the hospital with gifts as thanks. Naturally, those gifts never reached him, thanks to his greedy little sister. Komachi also mentions that the dog owner expressed a desire to thank Hachiman again, since they attend the same school. Surprised, Hachiman asks Komachi for the dog's owner's name. Komachi sheepishly admits she forgot. Later, Shizuka reads Hachiman's essay about his future career. He aspires to be a house husband. This infuriates Shizuka, who prepares to give him a memorable beating. As he begs for mercy, Shizuka calms down, telling him he'll definitely die a virgin since both sides want to be treated like royalty. In response, Hachiman asserts that men are the real prize, which earns him a punch to the gut. Once the violence subsides, Shizuka informs Hachiman he needs to form a trio for upcoming educational tours. After his chat with Shizuka, Hachiman enters the Volunteers Club room, greeted by Yukino, who asks if he saw her. Before he can inquire who she means, Yui bursts in, saying she's been searching for him. Confused, Hachiman replies that not even his biological parents are looking for him. So why is she? Yukino answers, explaining that since he took too long, she sent Yui to find him. Yui then shares how she searched everywhere, asking everyone, but no one knew him. It was a real hassle. Blushing, Yui asks Hachiman for his Snapchat ID to exchange contact information. As Hachiman agrees, Yui grabs his phone and starts typing, prompting him to ask how many boys she texts to type so fast. Yui pouts, saying he's shocked because he has no one to text him. This frustrates Hachiman, who reveals that at the semester's start, he exchanged contacts with a girl, but she always claimed to be asleep by 5 p.m. For a moment, Yui struggles to break the news to Hachiman, but Yukino intervenes, telling him that while he got goodnight texts, some other guy was getting "Are you up?" texts at midnight. Upon hearing this, Hachiman's eye twitches in agony. He snatches the phone from Yui, declaring it's time to post another misogynistic meme about women. Out of nowhere, Yui receives a strange message, and Yukino immediately suspects it's from Hachiman. She confronts him, questioning why Hachiman would send Yui a photo of his naked mole rat. Even as Hachiman insists he's innocent, Yui can't shake the feeling he's up to something. Fortunately, Yui defends Hachiman, claiming the text is about their classmates and doubts he cares about gossip. Suddenly, Haihito enters, announcing he has an issue that requires the Volunteers Club's assistance. Without wasting time, he pulls out his phone to show Yukino a string of messages. As she scrolls, the texts indicate that Toba is being branded a delinquent. Yamato is accused of being a three-timing jerk, while Ukat is said to play unfairly to win. After Yukino finishes reading, Heihito reveals his friends are being targeted by an anonymous person intent on ruining their reputations. Listening to Heihito's plea, Hachiman feels a wave of nausea, thinking about how Chads like Heihito live cushy lives and always want to play the hero. Meanwhile, Yukino asks Heihito if they should take revenge on the person behind these malicious messages. Before Heihito can clarify, she expresses her frustration towards those who hide behind anonymity while exposing others. Once her intentions to take down the culprit are clear, Yukino inquires if anything unusual has happened in their class. When they can't pinpoint a specific issue, Hachiman casually mentions the educational tour, sparking Yui's suspicion about the culprit. After considering the situation, Yui concludes that since groups will be in threes, the one fearing exclusion is likely sabotaging others out of insecurity. While Hachiman acknowledges Yui's insight, Heihito points out that the text involves all three of them. This leads Hachiman to explain that the culprit wants to ensure no one suspects him. Understanding Hachiman's point, Heihito frowns until Yukino asks him to provide some background on his friends. Since Heihito views the world through rose-colored glasses, he fails to give Yukino the juicy details she seeks, prompting her to assign Yui and Hachiman to spy on Toba, Yamato, and Oaka. That day, Yui informs Hachiman that she plans to ask the girls for their thoughts on the potential suspects. With that in mind, she approaches Yumiko and Hina to discuss the boys. At first, both girls are taken aback by Yui's sudden curiosity, questioning why she wants to gossip about them. But then, Yumiko realizes that Yui might have a crush on one of the boys. When Yui vehemently denies any feelings, Hina's eyes sparkle with excitement. She asks if Yui is curious, admitting she also enjoys imagining the boys in romantic scenarios. Feeling anxious for her own safety, Yui rushes back to Hachiman and Yukino, confessing her failure to gather any information. This prompts Hachiman to intervene. While keeping an eye on Heihito's friends, he is approached by Saoyu, who asks if he has chosen a group for the educational tours. When Hachiman replies that he has no friends, Saoyu suggests he consider him a friend. This makes Hachiman look at Saoyu, realizing he has inappropriate thoughts about this attractive boy. Suddenly, Heihito approaches, asking Hachiman if he has figured anything out. On that note, Hachiman glances at Oka, Toba, and Yamato, and comes to a realization. He gathers the Volunteers Club members, including Heihito, and states that Oka, Toba, and Yamato aren't friends, but hang out for Heihito's benefit. When Yukino asks how to resolve this issue, Hachiman gives a creepy grin. Hachiman proposes that Heihito shouldn't focus on identifying the culprit. Instead, he should help Oka, Toba, and Yamato bond by stepping back. Heihito takes Hachiman's suggestion to heart and later sits beside him, sharing how shocked the trio was when he told them he wouldn't be teaming up with any of them. However, Heihito feels pleased, believing this will allow them to connect. Hachiman is unexpectedly moved by Heihito's kindness, especially when Heihito asks him to pair up and wonders if he might secretly be American. Out of nowhere, Saoyu rides in and casually declares that he's joining their group as well. For a brief moment, Hachiman wonders if this could lead to something incredible. The next day, Hachiman arrives late, trying to explain to Shizuka that he's fashionably late. However, upon seeing Hachiman, Shizuka tells him he looks as ugly as ever. As Hachiman attempts to argue, Shizuka warns him to brace himself for a knuckle sandwich. After delivering the punch, Shizuka sighs, lamenting the number of problematic kids in her class. Right on cue, a troublemaker enters, and Shizuka asks her if she is also fashionably late. The girl, Saki, ignores Shizuka and walks past Hachiman, who wonders why Seiki isn't his female lead. Later that day, Hachiman decides to visit a cafe where he spots Yukino, Yuki, and Saoyu studying together. Feeling excluded, Hachiman approaches them when Saoyu innocently asks if he was invited to the study group. Yuki tries to silence Saoyu with a glare, and Hachiman picks up on it, cursing them out. Once the scolding is over, Yuki asks what he's doing, and Hachiman reveals he's researching summer courses to prepare for a college entrance exam. Just as they begin to explore the subject, Hachiman spots his sister entering with a guy. This sight makes Hachiman question if the guy is involved with his sister, but he decides to hold his tongue for now. As they gather and introduce themselves, the guy with Komachi shares that his name is Teshi. He adds that he attends cram school with Komachi, while his older sister Saki goes to the same high school. Upon hearing Saki's name, Saoyu comments that he's never seen her socializing with anyone. This leads Komachi to explain that Teshi recently sought her help because Saki has been acting out, coming home late, and no longer the kind sister he remembers. Intrigued, Yukino turns to Teshi, inquiring how long Saki has been behaving this way. Teshi responds that it all began when Saki started high school. Yukino then asks how late Saki typically gets home. Teshi explains that she usually arrives in the morning, and since their parents work full-time, they can't keep track of their eldest daughter. Frustrated by this, Yukino declares that the Volunteers Club will step in to assist Teshi and his sister. The following day, Yukino assembles the club members and announces her decision to make Saki take responsibility for herself. With that in mind, Yukino requests Hachiman to bring his cat. Once the cat arrives, Yukino plans to draw out Saki's softer side through interaction with the animal. Unfortunately, their scheme goes awry when Teshi calls to inform Hachiman that Saki is allergic to cats. This forces the group to abandon their initial plan in favor of a backup. They decide to bring Shizuka along, hoping a trusted adult can reason with Saki. As the plan unfolds, the group hides behind a pillar while Shizuka confronts Saki, demanding to know where she's been and what she does at night. Shizuka mentions the confidentiality agreement she has with her clients, urging Saki to consider her parents' feelings. Saki snaps back, pointing out that since Shizuka is single and childless, she should focus on her own future. This hits hard for Shizuka, leaving her feeling down as she decides to call it a day. Later, the group speculates whether Saki is acting out due to a broken heart from a Chad. If that's true, they agree to send Hayato to lift Saki's spirits. A few minutes later, Hayato approaches Saki, offering moral and emotional support if she ever needs it. Saki brushes him off, telling Hayato he looks like he admires himself too much. Hayato returns to the group, sharing what just happened. Suddenly, Hachiman receives a call from Komachi, who tells him that Saki recently got a phone from a place called Angel. With this new information, the group heads to a maid cafe named Angel for some plot advancement and fan service. Yui and Yukino don maid outfits while searching for Saki at the cafe. After a brief search, the girls report back that Saki isn't there. Realizing they're at the wrong location, they decide to check another establishment with Angel in its name. After changing outfits, Yukino and Hachiman arrive at a bar where Saki greets them. Upon discovering Saki is working as a bartender, Yukino confidently tells her she must quit since she's clearly lied about her age to work late. When Saki refuses, insisting she needs the money, Hachiman suggests that finding a part-time job is quite popular these days. Saki ignores him, stating she needs the money for serious matters, and if they can't help her financially, they should be quiet. Now irritated, Yukino tells Saki to stop being rude, but Saki retorts that since her father is wealthy, she doesn't need to lower her standards. This frustrates Yukino, prompting her to leave the bar with Yuki. Meanwhile, Hachiman asks Saki to meet him after her shift. Once her work is done, Saki arrives at the restaurant to find the entire group waiting, including Tashi. Before she can speak, Hachiman asserts that he understands why she's been working for money. He reveals that she's not only paying for Tashi's cram school, but also saving for summer courses. Saki sighs, admitting she wants to attend college, but not at the cost of her parents' hard work. Hachiman bluntly tells her to just apply for a scholarship, noting that her efforts are worrying Tashi. After the siblings leave, Yukino curiously asks Hachiman if all siblings are like that. Hachiman reflects, saying siblings are like the closest strangers. They know you, yet they don't truly understand you. Later, as Hachiman and Komachi walk home, Komachi expresses her happiness that he met Yuki, the dog owner who visited him in the hospital. Hachiman is taken aback, realizing he had no clue it was Yuki's dog. The next day, after the educational tour, Yuki greets Hachiman, saying she's been waiting for him. With a wry smile, Hachiman tells her that while she's kind, she doesn't need to be. He saved her dog purely by coincidence. He reassures her that she shouldn't feel obligated, knowing she tries hard to be nice to him. Yuki doesn't answer. Instead, she calls Hachiman an idiot, tears brimming in her eyes, and bolts away, leaving him baffled. Later, Hachiman reflects on how much he detests nice girls. Just a single conversation can make his heart race. He vows not to repeat his past mistakes. Hachiman tells himself he won't fall for Yuki's charm. She's probably nice to everyone. He's nothing extraordinary. After a week, Yuki ponders their last chat, frustrated by how men always ruin things with their words. That morning, Hachiman bumps into Yuki and casually greets her, which she awkwardly reciprocates. After a brief exchange, Yuki quickly dashes off, leaving Hachiman convinced he made the right choice. He feels a sense of relief that they're back to being strangers, thinking it's for Yuki's benefit too. In his thoughts, he concludes it must have been a burden for her to be kind to him, and now she's free from that. Ultimately, Hachiman's fear of abandonment overshadows his friendship with Yuki, as he celebrates the fact that he can't be left behind if he avoids relationships. Later, Yukino approaches him, asking if he and Yuki had a disagreement. Having honed his lying skills, Hachiman denies it effortlessly, but Yukino presses on, claiming Yuki wouldn't have stopped coming if there was no fight. Hachiman retorts that a fight requires closeness, which they clearly lack. Shizuka enters, announcing that since Yuki won't be returning, they need to find a new member immediately. Yukino argues with the counselor, insisting Yuki will be back soon, but Shizuka stands firm, noting it's been ages since Yuki showed up. Once the discussion concludes, Yukino tells Hachiman they must recruit Yuki again, making him wonder if she'll even want to return. Yukino replies that the choice is up to Yuki, but for now, she really wants to celebrate her birthday. Nervously, she asks Hachiman if he'd like to go out with her. The following day, Yukino expresses gratitude to Komachi and Hachiman for joining her on her day off. Hachiman, feeling anxious, avoids Yukino's gaze and suggests they split up to find the best gift for Yuki. Komachi disagrees, insisting they should shop together since they all came as a group, allowing them to share ideas. Upon entering the mall, the trio begins shopping, but soon, Hachiman and Yukino realize Komachi has vanished. Panicking, Hachiman calls out for Komachi, who casually informs him she has her own shopping to do. Frustrated, Hachiman questions why she suggested shopping together if she intended to ditch them. Komachi calls her brother an airhead, telling him to take the hint and enjoy his time alone with Yukino. With that, she hangs up, leaving Hachiman perplexed. As he resumes window shopping with Yukino, he notices girls staring at him as if he's from another planet. This bothers him so much that he tells Yukino he'll wait outside, but she insists they shop together. She explains her tastes differ from the average girl, which is why she needs him alongside her. When Yukino sees Hachiman lost in thought, she bluntly tells him to act like her boyfriend for the day. Hachiman considers it and realizes that since Yukino is honest, there won't be any misunderstandings. After agreeing, he asks Yukino if she's genuinely okay with this setup. Yukino, in her usual straightforward manner, replies that surrounded by strangers, she doesn't have to worry about anyone questioning why she's with a swamp creature like him. Meanwhile, in a pet grooming shop, Yuki finds herself deep in thought, realizing she hasn't resolved things with Hachiman. Suddenly, she notices her puppy is missing and rushes off to find him. Meanwhile, Yukino tries on various outfits, casually asking Hachiman for his thoughts. When he compliments her, Yukino quickly reminds him to picture Yuki in those clothes, not her. Out of nowhere, a familiar voice calls out to Yukino. Turning to see who it is, Yukino finds Hachiman standing there. With a playful grin, Hachiman introduces herself as Yukino's older sister. The group decides to sit down for a chat while Hachiman continues to tease Yukino, asking various questions about their relationship. Despite Hachiman's claims that they aren't a couple, Yukino's sister keeps teasing her without mercy. Irritated, Yukino snaps at her sister, insisting they need to shop for a gift and that she should back off. With a cheeky smile, Hachiman waves goodbye and runs off. After processing the encounter, Hachiman remarks that her sister is quite something. Yukino sighs, admitting that everyone is enamored with Hachiman because she seems flawless. This leads Hachiman to comment that while Yukino shares some traits with her sister, he's just more sociable, making her appear ideal. But then he thoughtfully adds that ideals aren't always reality, and one should be cautious about idolizing someone. Suddenly, a dog rushes toward them, followed closely by Yuki. However, upon seeing Hachiman and Yukino together, she immediately suspects something is going on between them. This makes her uneasy, yet Yukino insists she show up at the clubroom on Monday to sort things out. On the day they've been waiting for, Yuki braces herself for the confrontation when Hachiman suddenly appears, urging her to come inside. Inside the room, the girls clarify the confusion, and Yuki exhales in relief upon realizing Yukino isn't involved with Hachiman. At that moment, Hachiman presents Yuki with a gift, explaining it's a farewell token so she wouldn't feel pressured to care for him. Yuki's face falls as she confesses she never intended to repay him for rescuing her dog. Noticing the tension, Yukino intervenes, suggesting they end the misunderstandings and quietly exits the room. Yuki unwraps the gift, mistaking it for a choker, and joyfully puts on the dog collar. When Hachiman awkwardly points out it's meant for her dog, Yuki flushes with embarrassment and storms out. Yet beneath her irritation, she secretly feels pleased about their repaired friendship. Back at home, Hachiman is using what's left of his brain cells on a game when a message from Shizuka pops up. He tries to brush it off, thinking he'll tell his teacher he was napping, but her polite email compels him to open it. As he reads, Hachiman discovers Shizuka wants to discuss the summer activities for the volunteer club. Later, Komachi enters, announcing she's finished her homework and deserves a reward for her hard work. Naturally, Hachiman scoffs at her nonsense, suggesting she could win an Olympic medal for her mental gymnastics, but eventually agrees to take her out. A few minutes later, Komachi shows up with bags, declaring she wants to go to Chiba. As they step outside, Shizuka greets Hachiman. When the counselor questions why he hasn't responded, Hachiman, being his usual self, claims he was in a meeting with his monster. Shizuka informs him she's organized a trip to Chiba for his recovery. Suddenly, Yuki and Yukino arrive, each carrying bags, and Hachiman realizes Shizuka convinced Komachi to drag him out for club activities. Just as he's about to throw a fit over this betrayal, Sawi appears, and Hachiman sees the divine trap laid out for him. All his troubles fade away as he joins Shizuka and the others without a fight. Upon reaching their destination, the volunteers are welcomed by Hato, Yumiko, and their NPCs, with Shizuka announcing they'll assist at a summer camp for kids. While Hato and the crew introduce themselves to the children, Yukino asks Shizuka why she invited the cool crowd. The counselor reveals they were short-staffed, so she lured them in with promises of extra credits. Hachiman, wanting to escape volunteering, tells Shizuka he believes age is merely a number. Hachiman joins the rest of the group for their first task. As the older kids help the younger ones, To comments on how the kids must see them as real adults. Komachi adds that since she's younger, she views them all as adults too, except for Hachiman, of course. This annoys Hachiman, who insists he's an adult as well. Suddenly, Yukino halts and asks the group to check on the kids. Hato reassures Yukino that he's got everything under control and heads off to the kids. Hachiman watches Yukino, noticing her sadness for the girl who seems friendless. In a similar vein, Komachi has her own realization. She tells her brother that in front of Hato, he looks like a total loser. Hina chimes in, saying if he were dating Hato, he'd always be in pain. Later, Hato spots the loner girl, Ruby, wandering alone and brings her to join the group. Hachiman and Yukino, observing from a distance, notice how Ruby is being ostracized by her peers. This leads them to conclude that kids can be just as cruel as adults. Later, while everyone enjoys a cookout, Hato approaches Ruby. Being Mr. Popular, Ruby decides to make a strategic retreat to avoid making the mean girls feel insecure. With no other options, she joins Hachiman and Yukino. After they introduce themselves, Yuki joins the group. That's when Rumi mentions she knows Hachiman and Yukino are different and has liked them. When Yuki prompts her to explain, Rumi shares that her peers are all brats. Yuki warns her that without friends, she'll end up an outcast, but Rumi insists she'll make friends with newcomers in middle school. Yukino counters Rumi's plan, stating it's doomed to fail since those ignoring her will likely be in the same middle school. History is set to repeat itself. Disheartened, Rumi confesses she was once a mean girl who excluded others. Eventually, she realized she was one of those left out. Later, the Volunteers Club discusses Rumi's situation with Shizuka. As it's time for her to leave, Shizuka tells them to handle it if they're so eager to assist Rumi. After Shizuka departs, the group finds themselves in a heated argument over differing views. Ultimately, Yumiko storms off after a clash with Yukino. That evening, Akamen stumbles upon Yukino in the woods, and to his surprise, she opens up. She shares that they were childhood friends with Hayato, but everything changed over time. Additionally, Hayato's father is linked to her father's business, which forced their friendship. When Yukino explains how her family views her as a stand-in for Haruno, Achaman starts to grasp her struggles. The next morning, Sawai wakes Achaman from his slumber. Seeing the small figure hovering above him, Akaman feels a rush of unexpected excitement. Once he regains his composure, Akaman prepares for the day, but Sawai insists he needs to work out. Initially, Akaman brushes him off, but when Sawai asks for his email, he starts to sweat like someone in withdrawal. Imagining all the awkward ways to do cardio with Sawai, Achuman finally snaps from the built-up tension. Later in the dining hall, Shizuka reveals today's agenda, which includes a courage test followed by a campfire. Haunted by grim memories of his own childhood campfires, Achuman gets to work. Once finished, he decides to wander through the forest. That's when he stumbles upon a creek. The sight of fresh water lifts his spirits until he spots Komachi. Fortunately, Achuman has some scruples, so he advises Komachi to tone it down. Suddenly, Yukino appears in her swimsuit, leaving Achuman momentarily speechless. Yunika strolls by Yukino, smirking as if to say, "I'm packing more than you are." Achuman and the others witness this exchange and quickly reassure Yukino that she might just be a late bloomer. Naturally, Yukino doesn't grasp their meaning until much later, and when she does, she insists she's perfectly content with her size. While everyone enjoys the water, Achuman sits apart until Rumi joins him. Since the girls are wary of leaving Achuman alone with the child, Yui and Yukino come over to chat with Rumi. Yuki asks if Rumi wants to join them in the water, but Rumi declines and instead asks Achuman if he had friends in elementary school. When Achuman admits he had no friends, Yuki, ever the optimist, reassures Rumi that Achuman and Yukino are just uniquely built. On that note, Achuman tells Rumi and the others that he's just special, assuring her that being a loner is perfectly fine. To back this up, Achuman inquires how many elementary school friends Yuki still talks to. When Yuki reveals she only keeps in touch with 1 or 2 kids, Achuman tells Rumi that even social butterflies like Yuki have few connections. This implies that eventually everyone will drift apart after graduation, so Rumi shouldn't stress about making friends. Unfortunately, Rumi isn't convinced by Achuman's reasoning and expresses how being alone makes her feel inferior. The adults listen patiently as Rumi explains that even if she befriends everyone, she fears they'll abandon her again, making solitude seem preferable. Listening to her, Achuman realizes Rumi is on the path to making a therapist very wealthy. Later, as the Volunteers Club prepares for the courage test, Achuman declares he has a plan to assist Rumi. He suggests that when everyone is isolated, there won't be any cliques or groups. When the group asks for details, Achuman reveals he intends to dismantle the friendship surrounding Rumi. That night, during the courage test, Tobe, Yumiko, and Heihito confront Rumi among her peers. Angry, they plan to pick 3 kids to beat up, and as expected, the girls quickly nominate Rumi, setting Achuman's plan in motion. With 2 names left, the girls begin bickering just as Achuman had anticipated. However, his scheme takes an unexpected turn when Rumi distracts Tobe, Yumiko, and Heihito, urging her classmates to flee. Later, Achuman sits alone, grappling with the reality that his plan has unraveled. During this time, Shizuka approaches and appreciates his cynical outlook. But Achuman isn't in the mood for praise, so he stays silent. Once Shizuka departs, Heihito sits beside Achuman and wonders what life would have been like if they attended the same elementary school. Achuman replies that he would still be the same miserable loser, to which Heihito agrees, saying he'd never befriend a smelly loser like him. The next day, Shizuka drives the Volunteers Club members home when they unexpectedly encounter Haruno, who greets Shizuka. Surprised, the kids ask Shizuka how she knows Haruno, and the teacher reveals she taught her as well. Haruno then tells Yukino it's time to go, as their mother is waiting. A serious expression crosses Yukino's face as she silently says goodbye to her friends and gets into her car. After Haruno and Yukino's car drives off, Yuki approaches Achuman and gravely mentions how the car looks familiar, reminding him of his accident. But Achuman brushes it off, claiming all black cars look alike. In his mind, however, he has no doubt that the car that hit him belonged to Yukino. As he lounges at home, Achuman counts down the days until summer break ends, realizing only 2 days remain before the same cycle of misery begins again. Achuman feels irritation rising, pondering if counting back might stretch the days until summer break wraps up. A sudden bark from a dog disrupts his foolish train of thought, nudging him to check on the puppy. After giving the animal some affection, the doorbell rings, revealing Yui, who thanks Achuman and Komachi for pet sitting. Gathering her courage, Yuki asks Komachi and Achuman if they'd like to join her for the fireworks festival. Achuman's lack of enthusiasm prompts a sigh from Komachi, who realizes she must play matchmaker for her oblivious brother. To ensure future nieces and nephews, Komachi tells Yuki she can't attend due to her entrance exam, but she still wants to go. In fact, she has plenty of desires for the festival, so she insists Anicaps should accompany her to the fireworks. When Anicaps still misses the cue, Komachi shoots him a fierce glare that makes him flinch. On the day of the event, Anicaps waits for Yuki, who arrives dressed in a beautiful yukata. They board the train, engaging in trivial chatter until a sudden jolt sends Yuki tumbling into Anicaps. Regaining their footing, Anicaps muses that a typical simp would have fallen for Yuki, but he's evolved into an anti-simp. Upon reaching their stop, Anicaps notes their early arrival and suggests heading home instead. Yuki yells at him to use his brain, reminding him that Komachi left a list of festival items she wants. With no other choice, Anicaps exhales and agrees to just wander around with Yuki. As they walk, Anicaps reassures himself that he's not one of those clueless boys oblivious to the situation. He's well aware that Komachi is trying to set him up with Yuki. Noticing Anicaps' awkward expression, Yuki drags him toward the stalls, where a group of girls greets her. As the girls chatter away, Anicaps thinks it's best to blend into the background. Naturally, the plot god decides to throw him under the bus as Yuki introduces him to the girls. Minami smirks upon seeing Anicaps, telling Yuki she's lucky to have a boy at the festival while she's stuck with girls. Watching Yuki's social circle, Anicaps thinks that if Hayato were here, her status would soar, but instead, she's with a loser like him. Anicaps informs Yuki he's off to grab some fried noodles and walks away. Yuki isn't pleased, cutting her chat short to follow him. As they stand at the stall, the fireworks begin to light up the sky. Noticing everyone has brought a plastic sheet to sit on, Anicaps laments not bringing one from home. Yuki remarks on his ability to be thoughtful. Anicaps retorts that he's super considerate, which is why he keeps to himself to avoid bothering anyone. Yuki backtracks, telling Anicaps she actually thinks he's a decent guy. Puffing out his chest, Anicaps declares himself the king of his skies, claiming anyone else with his troubles would have destroyed the world. They continue walking until they stumble upon the VIP area. As they pass, Haruno calls out, inviting them to join her in the VIP section. When Yuki calls Haruno a celebrity, she brushes it off, saying her father's influence means little to her. Leaning in, she whispers to Anicaps, asking if he's cheating on her sister with Yuki. Anicaps insists she's mistaken, prompting Haruno to wonder if Yukino is the actual side chick. During their chat, Haruno explains how she manages events for her powerful mother. She adds that her mother is quite intimidating, which often leads to clashes with Yukino, shifting her focus to Yuki. Haruno inquires about Yuki's feelings toward Yukino. Yuki enthusiastically shares her admiration for Yukino, prompting a sad smile from Haruno. Yuki firmly asserts she would never feel that way. As the fireworks festival wraps up, Haruno asks Anicaps and Yuki if they'd like a ride home. Anicaps stares at the car, contemplating until Haruno tells him not to blame Yukino for the accident. Anicaps shrugs, claiming he's not one to hold grudges, and walks away with Yuki. On their way home, Yuki asks Anicaps if Yukino ever mentioned the accident, but he shakes his head. Before they part ways, Yuki tries to express her feelings but ultimately backs out. A few days later, Anicaps arrives at school and pauses to chat with Yukino. After their talk, he reflects on his past thoughts. Yukino was once a beautiful, brutally honest, and dependable person, but now he can't forgive her for being a liar like everyone else. The following day, Yuki finds herself in the awkward atmosphere of the Volunteers Club. To break the tension, she attempts small talk about her father leaving when she was 6. Sadly, her effort falls flat as both Anicaps and Yukino ignore her. Later that day, Anicaps is chosen as the boys' representative for the cultural festival, leaving no girls willing to step up due to his looks. Noticing the chaos, Minami attempts to push Yuki into taking on the responsibilities. Yuki hesitates to refuse, but Yumiko jumps in, insisting Minami needs her friend to draw in customers for the stalls. Ultimately, Haida-To the Chad intervenes, instructing Minami to take on the role of second representative. Unable to turn down the attractive guy, Minami reluctantly agrees to the position. Later, the student council convenes a meeting with all the festival representatives. Meguri, the president, declares the need for an executive for the festival and asks for volunteers. With no one eager to take on the undesirable task, Meguri points out how Haruno once managed the festival smoothly. Yukino quickly shuts down Meguri's subtle suggestion, stating she prefers to remain a committee member. Finally, Minami timidly raises her hand, offering to take on the executive role if no one else will. After the meeting, the group gathers in the Volunteers Club room, where Yuki is her usual cheerful self, while Yukino and Hachiman seem ready to quit life. Yuki excitedly mentions her surprise at seeing Yukino, who responds in a flat tone that she was equally surprised to see Hachiman. Yukino then announces her decision to temporarily disband the Volunteers Club due to the upcoming cultural festival. Hachiman, ever indifferent, says he's okay with it, while Yuki watches them sulk as if burdened by massive student loans. Suddenly, the door swings open, and Minami enters with her crew. She mentions that Shizuka informed her about the Volunteers Club and how it could assist her as the festival executive. In response, Yukino surprisingly agrees to help her, catching Hachiman and Yuki off guard. Once Minami and her friends leave, Yuki questions why Yukino chose to assist Minami while disbanding the club. Yukino explains that her knowledge of committee operations compels her to help Minami independently. This approach seems most effective given her expertise. Yuki feels a wave of disappointment upon hearing this. Hachiman trails after Yuki, asking why she seems so upset all of a sudden. Frustrated, Yuki expresses her discontent with Yukino's sudden change and her willingness to help Minami. During her rant, Yuki pauses and admits she likes Yukino more than she realized. Realizing this, Yuki firmly instructs Hachiman to support Yukino no matter what. Later, Hachiman attends the committee meeting and observes Yukino being strict with the members while Minami struggles. Before long, whispers circulate among the committee about how Yukino is better suited for the executive role, while Minami is falling short. Minami picks up on this and feels increasingly disheartened. The following day, Hachiman's class decides to go out for fun. Hina eagerly participates, driven by her own agenda to pair Peyote with Hachiman. Not wanting extra responsibilities, Hachiman tells her he's busy with the cultural festival committee and walks away. However, he soon notices a disturbance in the hallway. Upon closer inspection, he discovers Meguri pleading with Haruno to perform at the festival. When Haruno seeks Yukino's approval, Yukino coldly tells her to do as she pleases. Minami then arrives, apologizing for her tardiness to the meeting. Initially, Haruno greets her with indifference, but quickly shifts to ask if Minami can join the festival. Swayed by Haruno's charm, Minami eagerly agrees. When Hachiman enters, Haruno approaches him, surprised he's participating in such events. Instead of responding, Hachiman points out that she likely didn't expect Yukino to join either, but Haruno insists Yukino would follow her lead as the executive. As the meeting continues, Hachiman watches as Minami and Haruno team up against Yukino. Ultimately, they leave all the hard work to Yukino, opting to enjoy themselves instead. A few days later, Heido walks in to find Yukino and Hachiman hard at work. Heido comments on how Yukino appears to be doing all the heavy lifting. Yukino counters, stating this method is efficient, but Heido reminds her that without seeking help, everything will collapse. The next day, Shizuka rides in to inform Hachiman and the others that Yukino is taking a sick day. In class, Heido and Silly rehearse for their roles, resulting in Hina getting a bloody nose. Meanwhile, Yuki watches Minami having a blast, which irritates her. Suddenly, Hachiman calls out to her, letting Yuki know that Yukino is taking a day off. Worried, Yuki and Hachiman decide to check on Yukino. However, upon reaching her high-rise apartment, the two broke losers are left speechless. Upon entering Yukino's apartment, Yuki inquires about her well-being. As usual, Yukino brushes off Yuki's worries, asserting she's fine, though her pallor suggests otherwise. Frustrated by Yukino's stubbornness, Yuki vents her anger, expressing disappointment towards both Yukino and Hachiman. Yukino retorts that she couldn't care less, while Hachiman points out her approach is misguided. When Yukino challenges him to provide a better solution, Hachiman simply shrugs. During their chat, Yuki urges Yukino to lean on her and Hachiman for support. But when Yukino remains silent, Hachiman and Yuki decide to take their leave. As they turn to exit, Yukino calls out to Yuki, promising she will learn to depend on her in time. The following day, at the Cultural Festival Committee meeting, Minami calls for everyone's cooperation. However, Hachiman shoots down her request, suggesting she wants others to do her work while she slacks off. In response to Minami's comment, Yukino tells Hachiman to be quiet, which earns her a scowl from him. Once the meeting concludes, Yukino and Hachiman engage in a private conversation. For the first time, Yukino shows a hint of normalcy, waving goodbye to Hachiman and saying she'll see him tomorrow. The next day, Haruno approaches Hachiman, advising him that to improve teamwork, he must become the villain everyone despises. Hachiman, curious, asks Haruno if she's intentionally being harsh on Yukino for that reason, but she hushes him. Seeing her sister's bluntness with Hachiman, Yukino slams a stack of files on the table, demanding he finish them in 5 seconds. Seizing the chance to tease, Haruno asks Yukino if she can lend a hand. Predictably, Yukino responds that if Haruno wants to help, she should marry into the Italian mafia and move far away. Feigning hurt, Haruno insists she'll still assist Yukino regardless. On the day of the festival, the committee members are fully prepared to kick off the event. During the opening ceremony, Meguri invites the executive to share a few words. As Minami steps onto the stage, she realizes her inadequacy and delivers a cringe-worthy speech, after which Hayato and Sai perform, leaving Hina unconscious. Noticing Hina collapse, Hachiman thinks she needs some serious help. Later, Yuki approaches Hachiman, and they quietly observe Yukino handling all the stalls alone. Yuki comments on Yukino being a girl boss, and Hachiman nods in agreement. Yuki then pulls out honey toast, inviting Hachiman to join her for a bite. After finishing their meal, when Hachiman offers to pay, Yuki suggests he should just take her out to a restaurant. This makes him blush slightly, thinking Yuki is hinting at a date. While Hachiman's romantic prospects seem to improve, Minami is having a meltdown in the restroom. While working at the festival, Hachiman is greeted by Komachi, who learns her brother is finally contributing to society. Komachi tears up with joy. After she leaves, Hachiman spots Yukino and decides to spend time with her. During their chat, Hachiman notices a group of children rushing towards the auditorium and asks Yukino what's happening. Without giving too much away, Yukino tells him to follow her, leading them to where Haruno is conducting an orchestra. Yukino is taken aback, offering a few words of praise that surprise Hachiman. He remarks on how unusual it is for her to compliment her sister, but Yukino counters, revealing she holds Haruno in high regard and aspires to be like her. In response, Hachiman reassures her that she doesn't need to change. Before they can delve deeper, Yukino receives distressing news. It turns out Minami has vanished, and no one can get in touch with her. This causes concern among everyone, as they need Minami for the closing speech and to hand out performance awards. Hachiman suggests sending a substitute to deliver her speech, but Yukino dismisses this, insisting they need Minami to know which awards to give. Noticing the commotion, Hato offers to help, telling Chizuka and the others he can perform an extra song to buy them time to locate Minami. Once that's settled, Yukino turns her attention to Hachiman. Despite his reputation for being the least useful, Yukino entrusts him with the crucial task of finding Minami within 10 minutes. As Hachiman accepts the challenge, Yukino asks Haruno for assistance with something. Taken aback, Haruno remarks that this is the first time Yukino has ever requested help. Yukino then reveals her plan for everyone to put on a filler act and even asks Yuki to sing a song to buy them more time. Realizing Yukino is finally depending on her, Yuki happily agrees to take on the task, being a people-pleaser. Meanwhile, Hachiman sets off to find Minami. Putting on his detective hat, Hachiman assesses the situation, concluding that those who have lost their social standing would want to be found, so Minami must be hiding somewhere visible at school. Out of options, Hachiman calls Yoshitoru, asking where he typically hangs out. Hachiman, having received his answer, makes his way to the rooftop where Minami is waiting. When he instructs her to return and deliver the closing remarks, Minami retorts, suggesting he should just have Yukino do it. With a sigh, Hachiman pauses to reflect on the situation. He realizes Yukino won't be happy about Minami dodging her duties, especially after asking for help to improve as a chairman. This leads Hachiman to the idea that he must shower Minami with insincere compliments to persuade her to speak. Unfortunately, that tactic just isn't his style. Suddenly, the rooftop door swings open, revealing Hayato along with Minami's friends. Being the social butterfly he is, Hayato immediately tries to make Minami feel like the star of the show, but Hachiman isn't having it. He remembers how Yukino had to step in for Minami while she enjoyed herself. Ultimately, Hachiman confronts her, bluntly stating that she's just an attention seeker, much like himself. Minami, hearing Hachiman's comparison, attempts to flee, but he reminds her that he was the first to find her, implying she's not as important as she thinks. Hayato finally snaps, shoving Hachiman against the wall as Minami and her friends leave the rooftop. Once they're gone, Hayato glares at Hachiman, expressing disappointment and saying he was made from a quick fling, not love. Later that day, word spreads about Hachiman's confrontation with Minami, making him the most despised person at school. After the event, Hachiman visits the Volunteers Club room, hoping to ask Yukino about friendship, but she turns him down as usual. Yuki enters and suggests they join Hayato's group for the after-party. With no other plans, the Volunteers Club decides to offer their assistance. One day, they come across an email from someone wanting to make their final sports festival unforgettable. This prompts Yukino, Yuki, and Hachiman to share their thoughts about the event. Yukino admits she has always disliked the sports festival, and both Hachiman and Yuki agree, citing their lack of athletic skills. At that moment, the clubroom door swings open, revealing Meguri. She discloses that she is the one who sent the email. Meguri adds that since the cultural festival was well organized, she wants the sports festival to be equally impressive. While pleading with Yukino, Meguri struggles to remember who Hachiman is. This gives Yukino a chance to poke fun at Hachiman, calling him quite forgettable. Suddenly, Meguri recalls Hachiman, mentioning how he was quite helpful during the cultural festival. After flattering Hachiman, Meguri expresses her frustration with the monotonous athletic festivals and requests their assistance. As the group agrees, Meguri leads them to the committee meeting where Shizuka reveals she sent Meguri to ask for help. While brainstorming ideas, Shizuka dismisses all suggestions, prompting Hachiman to bring in reinforcements. He contacts Yoshitaru and Hina for their input, and the group gets to work. On the event day, the girls arrive for the first competition, dressed in costumes designed by Saika. After a lot of fun and excitement, the red team claims victory. To Meguri's joy, following the girls' match, it's time for the boys' pole toppling contest. The teams are split into white and red, with Hayato leading the white team and Sully at the helm of the red team. Hachiman and Yoshitaru, both on the red team, concoct a sneaky plan to outsmart Hayato. Hachiman plays the decoy, drawing all eyes to himself. Meanwhile, Yoshitaru stealthily topples the white team's pole, securing victory for the red team. Sadly, their underhanded tactics lead to disqualification. After the sports festival, Yukino, Yui, and Hachiman gather in the clubroom, reminiscing about the day and feeling optimistic about future events. Do you think Hachiman looks better with Yuki? Share your thoughts in the comments. Flat is justice, and if you're into anime recaps, be sure to check out this video.